Important stakeholders are the international community and how they support the Somali renewable energy needs. So what we're going to do is give a platform for each of these different international organizations. We're going to give them 10 minutes, about 10 minutes, okay? If you can keep it to that. And then they'll be able to just kind of explain their programs. And at the very end, if we have a few questions, we can take a few questions. But we're going to keep it limited. You can all interface later. So first, we're going to have Alex Way, Policy and Program Manager from DFID Somalia. Alex. And we can, yeah, actually, Alex, do you want to speak from here or there? Very good, very good.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Alex Way. I work with the Department for International Development of the UK, and I lead on specifically renewable energy across Somaliland and Somalia. From a DFID perspective, we're about alleviating extreme poverty. We're about putting an end to extreme poverty. And we're about doing everything we can to support countries as you tackle that challenge. So, DFID has a poverty alleviation mandate, but why are we really interested about it here in Somaliland and in Somalia? Well, I'm going to state some of the obvious things which you all know already, and that is we know we've got solar and wind in abundance, so we can do something relatively simply using renewables here in Somaliland and Somalia. But also because the need is here as well, and we recognize that. We know you have a big challenge and we want to support it. We know by investing in the energy sector, in particular in renewables, we can help you lift thousands of your fellow country people out of poverty. And that, as I've just said, is a really important thing we can achieve in the next 15 years. We know that by investing in renewable energy in particular, but energy sector more generally, we can accelerate inclusive economic growth. And by inclusive, I mean for every member of society. Business people, of course, but also for people who maybe aren't currently in business, but want to get in business and want to create a livelihood for themselves. We also know it's critical, particularly investing in renewables, because it helps you build your resilience to face the future challenges. We know that climate change is here, it's coming, but it's here already. We can see that now. We know there is drought already here. We know that sometimes, some years there's famine, sometimes there is feast, but we know that there are big challenges ahead still to come. And by investing in green alternatives, we can help you prepare for that future. So that's the rationale for why DFID, as a poverty alleviation agency, is involved. But why are we involved right now? And that takes us to the right-hand column there. Well, we know that the political will is here. We talk as a government to other governments. We know there is a real desire at the political level to make that change now. The time is right, politically. We know that citizens want it. There is a real demand in communities around these parts of the world who really want to have access to electricity, and they want it affordable, and they want it distributed on an equitable basis. We, as a donor, are interested. I think the fact the panel is absolutely full here this morning, and indeed there are others who sadly couldn't make it, as well as these colleagues, we know donors are particularly interested. International financial institutions are particularly interested. So there is real interest in supporting this sector. And we know, as you are all here, a testament to this, that there is a vibrant and well-established private sector here who are willing and already well involved in delivering energy and are really keen to take that to the next level. So the question is where to start. I put a word jumble on the screen. This has been very much, there's all these priorities. These are keywords that have come up in our discussions yesterday. And it ranges from legislation, coordination of sector, regulations come up a lot, how we deal with risk, how we deal with building capacity and giving skills. And this is very much where we are focusing our efforts. You're going to hear from Mark in a few moments, who is our team leader of the ESRES program, the Energy Security and Resource Efficiency in Somaliland program. This is our first big renewables initiative supporting renewables in Somaliland, specifically here. And our objective is to tackle some of those things that I was just talking about. We want to make sure that more people have access to electricity, and that that's greener electricity too, by adding renewables. We want to reduce the cost to the end consumer, and it's great news that because of the drop in oil price, that is already happening, but we want to take it even lower. And we want to prove that specifically hybrid mini-grids can be delivered in Somalia, Somaliland, and that they really do work here both for you as business, but also for society as a whole. I'm going to leave Mark to go into more detail, as I say, on how we're structured, but there are 2 phases. In total, about £20 million sterling over 5 years. Next 2 years is very much a pilot phase, and then we hope to take that to scale. And we very much look forward to continuing the collaboration with you as the sector going forward. I also wanted just to mention a few words about our broader energy activities here in Somalia, Somaliland, but also in Africa as a whole. Some of you will have picked up the press in the last few months about the UK's Energy Africa campaign. Now, this is an umbrella campaign which is trying to do what we're doing in ESRES, but do it across the continent. Because we have targets by 2030 that apply to us all, we want to do everything we can to unlock your potential to go to that next level and really deliver energy for everybody in your country. We'll do this by establishing partnerships. We'll look at legislation, we'll look at policy, but we'll also look at skills and capacity building. We'll look at finance where that is possible. So I just want at this stage to put that on your radars so you know that the Energy Africa campaign is out there and that we are actively thinking about what else we can do to help you deliver the solutions you need. So just to wrap up then on my part, our immediate priorities are really threefold. One is to prove the concept, and by that I mean show specifically that hybrid mini-grids can work and that they can work here. And they can deliver both a social return for the people of Somalia, Somaliland, but also deliver for you as business people and commercial entities. We want to support you in building capacity. Our initiatives in ESRES are targeted to do that. We want to understand what more we can do there. But we want to help you build capacity and skills in your workforces. We want to help build skills and capacity across society and, of course, in the public institutions as well. And we're working, as I say already, on that through ESRES. And I think critically, we want to share the lessons that we are learning through the ESRES program, but more generally across the sector as well, here in Somalia, Somaliland, but also across the region in Africa. We want to share those lessons with you. We want to share those lessons with our partners, international partners, and we want to help coordinate so that you get not an overlapping approach, but you get people supporting you in clearly defined and well-coordinated ways to your advantage and to everyone's satisfaction. So I'll stop there. Happy to take some questions later on. Thank you very much.
I'm going to talk about the witnessing what's happening currently, especially in Somaliland, because my program is actually related mostly to Somaliland. We've been here and initiated the program which we call SS Program Phase 1. It's, like I said, a pilot project, and we started in October 2015. Since the beginning of this and the last 6 months, we have actually gone through an inception process to identify the needs of Somaliland, identify the stakeholders, current position in the government, and we've produced several reports about stakeholders, roadmap for the government, reforms, especially in the energy sector, and now we also started to identify a process to go forward in financing small pilot projects. So first one, the most important thing, and all of you have been talking about this, regulatory reform is very important. Communication, understanding of what the needs are between the government, the businesses, but also the population in Somaliland. Developing the policy has been done already at the high government level. There are some national plans, but what was important is to identify what were the need for the regulatory framework in the energy sector. We identified those needs, and we're now providing a technical assistance to the ministry, and the idea is to help them in developing the right policies, procedures and forms to implement the regulatory framework. Out of this, the idea is to bring up to an international standard for the government to be able to govern the energy sector, but also give a good base for the businesses to understand how to go forward. And it's all to do in cooperation, and we've been trying to communicate with all the stakeholders. We've been meeting several times. We've done early marketing workshops. We've done presentation of concept notes. We work with the applicants on how to understand the needs to develop hybrid mini-grids around the region. And we are in the tendering process at the moment. We've identified numbers of sites around the regions, and these people will be invited to present their full proposal. The idea is not only just to provide a partnership between the government and the implementer or partner, but also to educate people in how tendering processes made, public partnerships are worked, and also understand the standards that are required to make a facility workable, but also in the long term give a sustainability to the people and the operation of the facility. We also have the third components of our program, which is in progress. It's to identify the stakeholders and do a mapping and identify the donors that could assist the energy sector in Somaliland. This is still in progress. From there, it's to drive us towards the phase 2 of this program, and present a fund system for the phase 2. And it will be called SRES Program 2, and it should start somewhere in 2018. What have we done? What initiatives have we done? I've already probably mentioned it already, but building a regulatory framework for the energy sector, that's what we're working on. Improving the stakeholders, communication, and encouraging development. I've already mentioned that as well. And it is important that we actually build a baseline of standards, but also the data information needs to be collected and recorded to understand the needs of the country. And we need to promote the capability and to attract the investment from donors, but and outside businesses interested in investing in Somaliland. We are also trying to foster partnerships with the stakeholders. We've been going to location, talk to all different people to understand what they need. At the moment, it's pretty ad hoc. People have small generators right up to hybrid mini-grids. Some of the hybrid mini-grids are already there, but it's not functioning properly. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate that, and thank you, DFID, for the commitments that you have to pushing forward the advances in renewable energy. We're going to go ahead and move, and I think we're going to go through the multilateral programs together. That's a good idea. So let's go next with Mr. Stephen Gudz of USAID. He's the growth team leader, and then what I'll do is allow you to introduce your two guys to Gail. Is that good? Very good.
If you flew into the airport, you probably noticed the wind turbines. That activity started back in 2011 with a wind survey. Max was involved in that. And in 2012, we started to support the construction of the wind turbines, and in 2014, those turbines started functioning. I think this sort of illustrates some of our interest, which has been supporting lessons learned, and I think that experience has taught not only USAID, but hopefully many of you in this room some important lessons learned, lessons regarding the importance of organizational arrangements, the importance of quality systems, and I think that's been well addressed over the last day, that it's more than just sort of a good new technology, but also what's the hardware that technology plugs into. Also, a lot has been learned about maintenance and capacity. You probably noticed that only 2 of the 5 turbines are actually functioning, at least as of 2 days ago, and hopefully all 5 will be functioning in the next few days or weeks. We also supported the Somaliland Energy Act. That work was done back in 2012, 2013. And again, an interesting experience and lesson learned. I mean, now we're in 2016, so obviously a lot of water has gone under the bridge. It's exciting that finally some of the fruits of that labor are being realized, and we're hopeful and optimistic that over the next few weeks that Energy Act will finally be passed. But again, realizing that Energy Act is really only the end of the beginning, shall we say, and a lot of work still needs to be done on regulations and implementation. Also, in the past, have provided some punctual assistance to service providers to show some proof of concept and some demonstration effect. And so going forward, where are we within the energy sector? I think we, similar to our colleagues at DFID, really see energy as an enabling sector, and for our enterprises to be competitive, regardless of the sector, whether it be horticulture, whether it be sesame or fishing or dairy, we have to tackle the energy issue and then get the price and the cost of energy down and improve the quality and the consistency. And so through our new Growth, Enterprise, Employment, and Livelihoods program that my colleagues will go into a little bit more, we're trying to understand how to address and how to partner within the energy sector. And so there's a few areas we're looking at. We're not yet as defined as our colleagues from DFID and some of the others at the table, but one of the areas is policy space, recognizing the importance of an enabling environment, and recognizing that, for example, in the case of Somaliland, the passing of the act really is an important step, but it really is the beginning. And very much appreciate some of the comments over the last few days from our private sector colleagues in terms of the importance of regulation and a transparent operating environment. Also looking at cross-cutting issues that affect multiple companies. It's very exciting to hear about the gathering and the coordination between the IPPs here in Somaliland and the creation of the Somaliland Energy Association. Also interested in opportunities for regional integration in terms of what's happening in Ethiopia nearby as well as Kenya, so trying to grapple with, are there any opportunities there? And then lastly, which I'll let my colleagues from the Growth Enterprise Employment Livelihoods project go into, is really looking at how do we make some strategic investments and look at piloting some activities to improve the competitiveness in the various economic sectors where we're investing in. And so I'd like to invite my colleague Mohammed Abdinoor, who is the Chief of Party for our Growth Enterprise Employment Livelihoods project, commonly referred to as GEEL. And we hope it's as equally as resilient as our camel as well. Thanks.
Assalamu alaikum. Let me introduce myself. As Stephen said, Mohammed Abdinoor, my name's. I wish I could speak my presentation Somali, but because a lot of people speaking English, so let me speak in English today. Maybe next time we can speak in Somali. Growth Enterprise Employment Livelihood Project is a USAID funded project. Total value is $74 million US. Right now, I'll just give a few highlights. If you see in your schedule, we'll do a detailed presentation on Tuesday, 10:45 to 11:45. So we haven't prepared a PowerPoint, but we'll just give a few key highlights, and then I will hand over to my colleague. Growth Enterprise Employment Livelihood Activity promotes inclusive economic growth across Somalia and Somaliland. The intention of the project is to improve the competitiveness of the value chains, key value chains, including agriculture, fisheries, and dairy. Recently, we did an assessment, a quick assessment about, we talked to different value chain partners, and one thing that came out throughout the discussion was the constraints. One of the top constraints was affordable energy. So most of the businesses were complaining about access and reliable source of energy in terms of improving their productivity, in terms of their businesses. And I think this is the good thing about today's event is we're hearing constantly that energy solutions need to be provided so that the businesses, agribusinesses can be profitable and they can improve productivity. So the key areas where the project will focus is improving business environment through access to finance and support, promoting enterprise development, and also improving productivity, employment, as well as creating access for women and youth. Women and youth is a cross-cutting agenda for us, and we want to include women and youth in our program activities. The challenge also, when we looked at a lot of the assessment of findings we've done is, as Steve was saying, there are a lot of lessons learned. So many implementing partners have been doing work. So we are adopting a more collaborative learning and adaptive approach, just learning from what other organizations and NGOs or development partners or private sector have been doing, and how can we improve some of the lessons learned. I mean, we don't want to begin from nowhere, but we want to build on what's been done previously. So for this year, the focus for the first 1 year, our initial focus will be in South Central, working mostly on agriculture value chains, and then expanding the second year into Somaliland and Puntland, then focusing more into fisheries and non-pastoral or livestock programs. So in the end of the 5-year project, we intend to achieve by introducing new technologies, at least 40 new technologies. We want to improve productivity and volumes of commodities that we're targeting by 50%, and facilitate at least 20 new private sector investments, approximately each $500,000 US, and creating 5,000 new jobs It's a lot of high-level target, and that's achievable by working closely with others and learning and be able to achieve scale and impact. So let me hand over to my colleague who will go into more details about renewable energy solutions.
Thank you, Mohammed. I too would like to speak in Somali, but since I'm not familiar with the language, I'll speak in Texan. And if anybody needs translation from Texan, I'll help. As Mohammed said, and let me expand on him, we're working on about 5 different areas of high-value chain within Somalia and Somaliland. We'll be doing fisheries, bananas, sesame, dairy, and dried citrus. I encourage what I'm hearing over the last couple days in regards to renewable energy on the large scale, microgrids. In the interim, we're going to step it down a little bit where we would actually introduce individual solar systems into the fisheries. And an example would be solar fridge and solar freezers. And then my ultimate dream is solar ice. Talking with all the producers and brokers and exporters, one of the main limitations for fisheries is ice and the loss of fish because the ice does not exist. We're losing up to 70% of the catch, which is money lost. Within the fisheries, with the development of ice and a cool/cold storage system, we also want to expand on small businesses with insulated boxes for carrying the ice, which would help the people that are selling directly to the population domestically. And all this is a great idea, except we still need to expand on the post-harvest of every of the commodities, whether it be fish, bananas, dairy, or even the dried citrus, which I'll speak about in a minute. Regarding bananas and sesame, irrigation is obviously a key factor. With the canal systems in the current system that they're in, or the state that they're in, irrigation is oftentimes hard to get a hold of. So we'll be using solar power submersible pump systems as well as surface pump systems to assist in the irrigation process. Regarding dairy, we would like to also introduce the solar freezer and the solar refrigerators that can prolong the life of the shelf life of the milk. Unfortunately, there's no real solar system from farm to market, so we'll have to rely on diesel-powered reefer trucks to get the product into the marketplace. One of the highlights that's being offered in some of these refrigerators and freezers is they're coming with a USB port that it's allowing people to go ahead and charge their cell phones, which could be a small amount of income for the farmer as well. Regarding the dried citrus, currently dried citrus has got a large export market into the Dubai area. We want to incorporate solar drying, which would increase hygienics as well as enable the drying process to go on during the rain season. Keeping in mind the solar energy is a great concept, but we plan on working through the entire value chain. Many projects that have come and gone have concentrated on one particular aspect of the value chain, whether it be the producer, whether it be the market, whether it be the export. GEEL is in with the objective of affecting the entire process, where the exporters will be talking to brokers, will be talking to the buyers, will be talking to the producers, so that producers know that a better quality product will bring a higher return at the export end. Other than that, we do, as Mohammed said, we've got a great presentation on Tuesday. I don't want to steal all my thunder because that's where all my slides are. So I will turn it over.
Thank you very much.
Another NGO, we are committed to working through repeatable partnerships with those in need to achieve positive and sustainable change. For the past 26 years, the agency has implemented over 150 projects on education, wash, infrastructure, health, renewable energy, livelihoods, and emergency response. Next slide. ADRA's energy program, the strategic objective is to enhance livelihoods through inclusive promotion of alternative energy for households and commercial use. We have a total of 5 objectives in our program. Number 1 is to create awareness and use of alternative energy. Number 2 is to ensure productive use of alternative energy. The third objective is to enhance the development and adaptation of alternative energy policies. The fourth objective is to enhance access to education and health services by providing renewable energy options. The last objective is to strengthen the capacity of key partners to manage alternative energy activities. In terms of our past projects, we started working in Somaliland in 2001. I'm actually glad to see some agencies we were working with in 2001 are attending this forum. We have coffee. Is it? Yes. When we started working in Somaliland, there was only one enterprise working on solar, coffee. And I'm glad to see that, 16 years later, you're still working in energy, and just by the presence of everyone here, it means the energy sector in Somaliland has really grown, and it's a very positive step. The very first project was funded by USAID, ran between 2001 and 2005. It was just like over $1 million, and it targeted small-scale renewable energy systems, as well as capacity building for local PV systems. Similarly, after that, we did a project funded by the European Union to the tune of $100,000. It was called Somaliland Energy Policy Dialogue. And this is where the process of developing the energy policy for Somaliland began. And I guess this was a precursor to what the USAID did on the Energy Act, and of course what DFID is now doing on the legal and regulatory framework. So it's a very long process. It started in 2006. So you can see just how far it has come. Then ADRA has also worked in the health sector. In 2007, we implemented a program targeting rural health centers in Somaliland, basically so they can be able to store their medicine and also to be able to operate at night, which was not possible before. Next slide. In between 2008 and 2012, ADRA implemented a program funded by the EU, Somali Energy and Livelihoods Project, where over 50,000 people were being targeted with different energy technologies, PV systems, wind hybrid system, improved biomass cook stoves for social services. We are looking at education, we are looking at health, and farming communities. We also had a couple of trade fairs, but not a central trade fair. We cascaded them down to region, in Audal, in Sahel, and here in Marote. So just small-time trade fairs trying to introduce people to existing technologies. And this was also the year when the Somaliland energy policy was completed in 2010. Of course, 6 years now, the energy policy, needs revision. Between 2010 and 2016, for example, the off-grid ecosystems were not there in 2010. In 6 years now, practically every household has that small-scale system. And it was not captured in the policy at that time. So there are some revisions that as ADRA we want to work with government and of course other actors in the sector to upgrade this policy. LPG was not as big in 2010. Now most urban households are now using LPG. It was not really encapsulated in that policy, and so those are some of the changes that need to be done to the policy. ADRA has also worked with non-state actors to implement renewable energy initiatives. So we granted a total of 10 NSAs to implement different energy activities in different parts of Somaliland. Some set up PV systems in police stations, for example. Others set up PV systems in schools. So they basically provided proposals which we reviewed and then we granted them. It's a way of building their capacity to implement renewable energy systems. And I'm glad to also see that these NSAs, some of them actually attended this forum. ADRA has done some work for the World Bank. We did a study in 2013 where the World Bank was looking at the possibility of providing alternative renewable energy source for fish processing. And then we are currently implementing 2 active programs. The first one is powering education services in rural Somaliland. And we are targeting a total of 1,400 girls at primary and secondary level. And we're also providing PV systems to 5 schools in rural Somaliland. It's basically aimed at enhancing learning outcomes. The education system is set up in such a way that you look at enrollment, you look at retaining, and then you look at learning, and then completing the cycle of education. So this particular program is looking at learning outcomes for these target girls. We are also implementing an EU-funded program, Somali Energy Transformation side project. It's slightly less than $3 million, and it's targeting solar PV for education, basically for social services, education, health, irrigation, and we also have a total of 3 electrification schemes in Somaliland. We are looking at biomass efficient stoves and policy dialogue sessions for the energy policy. All right. Let's just move to the next slide. So the program is ideally looking at contributing to poverty alleviation, fragility reduction and climate change mitigation for rural and peri-urban people in Somaliland. And it's targeting 19,900 households and 50 rural and peri-urban businesses. And indirect beneficiaries will be 50,000 energy insecure households. Next slide. We have 4 expected results. The first one is expanding access to electricity. The second is improving living conditions and access to water, health, and education, the 3 social services we target. And then increasing job and life opportunities. And lastly, improving an enabling environment and increased capacity of government authorities. The key activities quickly for this program: developing off-grid solar PV markets in rural Somaliland, developing community electrification schemes, supplying and installing PV systems for irrigation, health, and education, scaling up production, distribution, and marketing of modern energy-efficient cook stoves, and developing and supporting youth-led renewable energy enterprises. Next slide. For cook stoves, for energy-efficient cook stoves, we're looking at working with 4 groups to actively engage them in production and commercialization. So by the end of the program, we should disseminate 3,500 energy-efficient cook stoves sold and used by households. And we also intend to build and equip 4 energy-improved cook stove production centers in Somaliland. The next slide. Yeah, thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
I think it's, I asked to be last because I wanted to say a few words about the difference between bilaterals and multilaterals. The bilaterals basically give grants as their primary tool of intervention, and they are, maybe they should answer this question themselves, but they are give or take free to work in Somalia and Somaliland. It's an issue with their government and talking to the authorities here. For the World Bank Group, it's very different. First of all, the World Bank Group consists of 2 sections. I have all my IFC colleagues here. They, I'm not going to give you the microphone, don't worry. I can see them all going on. Don't pick on me. So I'll speak on your behalf instead. So we are basically a group of cousins or sisters. We have the private sector side, and we have the mothership, am I allowed to say that? The bigger World Bank, which primarily works through the government. These guys can, as a general rule, engage directly with the private sector. Where I'm sitting, we primarily engage through the government. Is that a fair way of putting it? Yeah. The other thing is that we, on our side, primarily give loans. Actually, our grant ability is very, very limited. So our big tool is to lend money. We are a bank. And the problem is that right now, because of the political situation and because of the fact that the central government in Mogadishu There's a process called HIPIC, etc., etc. It's a very long and complicated story, but the facts are right now we cannot lend any money in Somaliland or in Somalia. So that restricts us to just doing relatively small projects with the limited grant funding that we have available. And I think it's important to tell this story. I know there's a certain degree of disappointment at times because people read about enormous loans being given to Tanzania or to Ethiopia, and they're like, so, why is it not happening here? Well, there is a macro political background to that, which is way beyond my control, and we will just have to wait for the day when all these issues are sorted out. I normally, many of you have heard this joke before, I don't even know if it's funny, but the World Bank is a little bit of a super tanker. It takes a very long time to get up to speed, and we're actually not really gaining that much speed right now because we still don't have that political solution that would allow the World Bank to come in with its lending instruments. So, we do have something called, I need to remember what it's called. It's called the Multi-Partner Fund, and that's a vehicle for grant funding, and the way it works is that we have a little bit of our own funding, and we have some kind bilateral donors who choose to give some of their money to the World Bank. So instead of using it their own implementing agencies, they actually kindly enough provide some funding for the World Bank. They put it into the multi-partner fund, and they ask us to do preparatory work, get involved, work with people, get to know the sector, so that when lending becomes available, we actually have an idea of what's going on. So with the limited budget that we have available right now, we have some intended, we have some cooperation done through with the IFC, covers some energy work, some broader work also on private sector in general. That's okay, we'll put it that way. And then on the energy side, we are doing, I don't know, like yesterday, I get very dry and very strange. We are doing right now primarily three things. We have a Lighting Africa program where we will sign a contract. Today is Sunday, so it's not going to be today. But we'll sign a contract for a diagnostic study for a Lighting Africa project to be developed for this whole region. And I think many of you have heard me talk about it before, and probably a lot of you know what the Lighting Africa program is. It's basically through the private sector trying to promote the use of approved and quality assured small sort of lantern lighting products. These programs can get very big. The program in Ethiopia is $30 million US, so we're hoping to make it very large. But we're doing sort of a diagnostic study now, how it's going to look. And if the lending window is not going to be opened up, then we will have to ask our bilateral partners to fund the actual program. So I can't say anything about how big it's going to be, but we expect it to be very large. We're also doing quite a bit of resource mapping. Despite what I said yesterday, we do believe that mapping of renewable resources are very important. And what we are doing is, we've started with wind, partly because wind is more complicated, but also because we have a program already in Ethiopia, so it's possible to save some money by using the same supercomputer time, etc., for both countries. So we have a wind model ready for Somaliland and for Somalia and for Ethiopia and for Djibouti and for Eritrea. We have a model that covers all those countries, and as I said yesterday, it will be available shortly by IRENA, so you'll be able to download maps, and it will be first class. You will basically have a wind map, the same quality as South Africa or even Denmark. So it will be first class. It will give you very detailed information about what are the good areas, what are the less good areas. What I can say is that wind resources are outstandingly good in general up north. We are hoping to do some soil measurements at some point. We would also be interested in looking at the hydropower sector for the south. And we would also be interested to look at modern biomass. And modern biomass is a lot of the waste products coming out of all the stuff that Bob is doing. Very often you can collect that in Parliament. And that's another good source of power. So those are our existing activities. And then we also have a power master plan study prepared. And I want to be very honest with you, what happened was we had it out for tender, and in the end we got 0 proposals because of security concerns. So we need to restructure the way we are bidding this job out to get people to bid for it, and we're relaunching it any day now. So I'm just working on the terms of reference, trying to get it out there and do it again. So we can bring in some international consultants to work with you about what should the sector look like in 20 years' time, what does a development plan for Hargeisa look like in terms of electrical infrastructure. It will be an interactive exercise with the sector, but ultimately it will be not an instruction, but it will be consultants on behalf of the World Bank giving you a suggestion. Because in the end, it's up to the sector how to take this advice on board and what you choose to do. But what our intention is to give fairly detailed plans for major cities, our suggestion to how you do this, what to do first, and how you sequence investments. And I think I should probably stop there in the interest of time. So that's it.
Thank you, Anders. Okay, we're pushing time, but I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask at least 3 questions.
Stephen, we were very much involved with those wind turbines, which are just a wide element, and it's a shame to all of us. And one of the main problems is this was a donor-driven thing. Case in point, I mean, they were using our grid, and they ordered those things without in consultation with us. So hopefully, anyone who is thinking about bringing projects to Somaliland will consult with the stakeholders, because it's a shame on all of us. And the question I would like to ask on Andres is, as a Somali, we are really glad that we are not even taking those loans and selling the future of our sons and daughters. But is there any possibility for us to get some sort of a guarantee from the World Bank so that we can even buy it by ourselves and pay it? Because that's the only thing we are asking for. We don't want any funds coming through the government, but as a private sector, we are very much involved in, we cannot take over that capital investment. So is there any possibility to really get any assistance on that?
Okay, so thank you for your comment.
Yeah, very quickly, we're quite happy that USAID and DFID are now moving towards enterprise development and engaging with the local businessmen and the commerce sector. We have been advocating for that for a long time. So we're quite pleased, although I'm an NGO person, that we're moving away from the NGO sector and into the private sector. That is where our development is going to be. We've done quite a bit here, and sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So what we need to do in the future is to coordinate all our activities together so we know what we are all doing. That will be more efficient. One case in point is, for example, for ADRA, ADRA is about maybe 2 kilometers from my office, and we have a biogas digester that we have developed locally. But we didn't know that ADRA was doing any biomass work. So in the future, we need to work together. For DFID and ISRES, the work you're doing is wonderful. We welcome you. But I didn't see, yesterday we were talking about interlinked cross-cutting areas, and I didn't see any mention of any engagement with universities or training institutions, skills building, which are essential. And for USAID, one comment. I hear you are coming here in 2018, and the first thing you're going to do is fisheries. You may be a little bit behind the curve. The fisheries work has already been done. I thought some USAID work through DII has already been going to that. So why the delay? Why wait 2 years while the work on fisheries has been going on for a couple of years?
Your question specifically.
Would USAID consider accelerating that program in Somaliland from 2018 to now?
Okay, very good. The next, okay, go ahead, announce yourself, and then very quick to the question,
Sure.
not a lot of comments, if you would, and then, sorry, and a little bit of opportunity for us to respond here, clearly, so go ahead.
Hi, my name is Iman Yusuf. This is just a quick question. I was wondering if since the developing countries we haven't contributed much to the global warming and climate change, if there's a funding aside for those countries that hasn't contributed much. I mean, there's accountability for the countries or the nations that contributed to global warming. And I was wondering if the panel's aware of any funding and can they quantify if there is?
We're gonna cut it there. Sorry. Let's cut it there. If you have questions, let's have you communicate later. So go ahead. We're gonna go. I think that's on the spot here. So
thanks a lot, Lee. No, but when we talk about lessons learned, we always like to talk about positive lessons learned. And I think we need to be transparent that if we really want to have lessons learned, we need to talk about the good and the bad. And so in terms of the Hargeisa airport, fair enough. Appreciate Hassan's comments, points well taken. I know this was, again, before my time. I just joined the Somalia office in the last few months, but I know from looking at reports that there was extensive discussions that were made. And I think one of the lessons learned that I see right now is that the institutional arrangements are incredibly complicated. Right now, there's probably 4 or 5 different organizations that have to agree for that project to be a success. And so I think that's an interesting lesson learned. I definitely welcome expanded discussion on that. In terms of just briefly on coordination, I think the example that the private sector has put before us is definitely laudable, and we definitely also are endeavoring to do our best and appreciate DFID's leadership in that in particular, in terms of seeing how we can coordinate better.
okay, the next question was. So, do you want to respond?
Fisheries aspect?
Well, sure. Go into the fisheries aspect.
Yes, sir. In response to the fisheries aspect, actually, we will be in Somaliland in 2016, which is months away. The reason for starting in South Central, just getting our feet wet in the country, we wanted to start there, and then also keep in mind that it's not just fisheries, it's primarily the export of fisheries, which we would like to do all up and down the entire Somali coastline.
Very good. Anders, there was a question about guarantees of the World Bank. I'll be interested to hear this. Okay, Anders.
Is it on? Yeah, sure. I'd like to start by saying that I work in a large number of countries, and I love coming here. People are very direct and very friendly, and one of the people that I really always like is Hassan. He's always very tough with me, but I consider him, but I also can sort of guarantee instruments, both in the IFC and in the World Bank sort of cabinet of tools. However, they are almost all exclusively tied to the same restrictions that apply to the general loans. So when the overall situation is sorted out, it is possible to open that toolbox testing exercise that maybe we could test out a few things along these lines with lower budgets as a preparation for when we can open the big box. Is that an acceptable answer, Hassan?
Yeah. Let me top that up a little bit and say the Shuraako experiment, if you can call it that, is already exploring this space because we're in a different space.
Climate change interventions are not tied to guilty past. It's not like, you go in and say, oh, this country is the one that did a lot of damage, so we're going to put all the investments in that country. The guiding principle is very much to get the biggest bang for your bucks. So what you do is, because it's a global issue, so what you try to do is you actually try to identify projects where you can make the biggest change for the least in terms of investments. So nothing excludes Somaliland is, as you rightly said, basically is not responsible for the situation that the world is in now. That doesn't mean that Somaliland is excluded from accessing this funding. Not at all. The principle will be, we want to identify projects that give a huge return in terms of climate change mitigation, and there's no particular reason why that shouldn't be exactly in this city where we're sitting now.
Yeah, no, Anders, I think that's a great point. I think it's important to note that the donor environment is incredibly competitive, and each one of us are fighting in our respective capitals, our respective headquarters, to show the value for the investments that have been made in Somaliland. So, for example, in the Hargeisa wind farm, very bullish, that in a few months we can go back to our headquarters and tell a very good story, and talk about the challenges openly, but talk about the good stories. And also, when I go to my Power Africa colleagues who are investing in Ethiopia and Kenya and other countries, try and discuss the marginal impacts that we can have in Somalia, Somaliland, and how they compare very, very favorably to investments in energy throughout the continent. And so your role in helping us tell those stories and those opportunities is enormously appreciated.
I'd just like to pick on the gentleman's point on climate finance as well. The UK takes this very, very seriously, as do my colleagues here on the panel. We invested just short of £4 billion, what's that, about $6 billion US, between 2011 and 2015 in low-carbon, green alternative technologies, ideas, programming. The ESRES program you've heard about today is £20 million. It is funded entirely from the UK's International Climate Fund, the ICF, which I hope is a demonstration of our commitment to helping Somaliland specifically build a greener, sustainable future. So we take that very seriously, and you have and the finances there to prove it. Can I just pick very briefly up on the point on General Professor's point on universities? I think Mark is going to say a couple of words. Very important point. We're not quite at that stage yet, but it's very much on our radar, and I think Mark will say a few words about how that will fit in. And the point on coordination as well, we're absolutely critical. It's been touched on already. We do need to make sure that, especially as donors and IFIs, we all know what each other is doing. This forum has been tremendously important for facilitating that, and that going forward, we know who's doing what and where the gaps are that everybody collectively needs to fill.
Yes, in regard to training, we've been discussing this with the ministry, and part of our technical assistance will be to identify the technical needs for the region. We also been talking to the Ministry of Education and TVET groups and some of the NGOs that are actually currently doing some technical training. So it's part of our TA activities. It's a progress that will happen this year and into next year as well, and you'll see more of it. Thank you.
Very good. I want to thank the panel for taking questions. One of the reasons this forum has been convened is because we know donor coordination is a challenge. It's a classic development challenge. It's not just here. It's not a matter of donors not wanting to be transparent, not wanting to be coordinated. It's very hard to coordinate these big projects. But one of the things we think that can happen is around this, by having it be multi-day. Many meetings have occurred already. Donors were thrilled. Quite frankly, when I spoke with them, they were saying, thank you. It's a real benefit for them to get together and share just as much as it is for you. So you all, in the surveys that we took with the private providers, we identified the access to donor information was low, and that was frustrating, and I think frustrations come out. And I will tell you this, I think it's nice to take a challenge like happened with the airport and turn that into an opportunity. Some of the primary motivation for me personally was coming in and seeing that get installed and then watch them sit there. And I kept saying, please turn, please turn, please turn. And then year over year, I would have conversations with Anders and others, and they'd say, well, there's this challenge, that challenge. And I thought, you know what? We got to do better than this. And even USAID said, we got to do better than this. So I think there is ownership of the difficulties, but also there's a lot of lessons learned from it, and it's going to push it forward. So I think that's very good. Saskia, do you have those slides up? Are we able to turn those on? Okay, why don't we do this? Let me thank the panel. We'll go ahead and dismiss the panel and set up for the next round.